Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com. Shop there today and make yourself look good. Welcome, everyone, to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight should be an awesome show as we are awaiting our guest, Rex Bear, to go ahead and join the studio. We're going to go ahead and jump into the chat and see who has come in first. Let me go ahead and take a look here. Courtesy of Race Fan, it looks like we got Race Fan with the gold. We have Roger Murray with the silver. And then we have Kurt W75 with the bronze. Definitely appreciate you guys coming on in. And we're going to go ahead and take a look, see who else has come on in. Roger Murray with some information for us. Let's see. February 12th, 1941. My mother, Catherine, 84th birthday. February 12th, 2009. My father served U.S. Air Force, Vietnam. Died age 69. Philadelphia Eagles fan. Oh, I don't like the Eagles. But I love that you dropped the information on us here, Roger Murray, as you always do, keeping us fully informed. We do appreciate you. Who else do we have here in the building? We have, let's see, Miss Catherine Jones. Miss Catherine Jones is here. Let's see, Adam B. is in the building. Galactic Disclosure Movement is here. Bob Thorson is here. Susan Alloway. I do see Susan Alloway. Susan Alloway is here in the building. Appreciate you showing on up. Who else do we have? Scott Rosen. Hey, Scott Rosen. And let's see. Richard Minnick. Richard Minnick saying, what's up? Hey, Richard Minnick. Deb from Sacramento in the building. Hey, Deborah from Sacramento. Appreciate you showing on up, and we're going to go ahead and start the podcast side of this here as we get ready to go. All right, welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are going to have an awesome show tonight. We are expecting our guest here, Rex Bear, momentarily for hours 1 and 2, and then we'll have Tim James stepping in for hour 3, filling in for Drew Banke with the After Hours wrap up. Should be an awesome show. Let's go ahead and get ready to get this thing started. Radio side starts in about 10 seconds. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight, we'll be broadcasting to you on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/ at Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SLR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Ron Bumblefoot Doll, and oh, so much more. So like I said, it should be a fantastic show tonight. We are expecting our guest here, Rex Bear, to show up here momentarily as we go ahead and get ready to jump into the show. So we'll kind of hang out for a little bit here because it looks like our guest may be running a little late. So this actually gives me a little more time to go ahead and talk to others out there in the audience. Who else do we have that I didn't get to in the intro? Looks like we have Cielo Azul. Cielo Azul has stepped in as well. We have Kevin Kennedy, TMI. Thanks for coming on in, Kevin Kennedy. Cielo Azul says, been waiting for this. Yeah, me as well, Cielo Azul. So we should be hopefully having our guest here momentarily, and we can definitely get into the show. Let's see, who else do we have? We have, I think that might be it, actually. I think we may be caught up. As on the radio side, this is what we do beginning of every show. We welcome our viewers that come in on the YouTube end, and we're running through the names in the chat right now, making sure we say hello to each and every person that shows up. So if you're on the radio side and you don't have anything to do on a Saturday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, stop on over youtube.com/ at Spaced Out Radio and check us out live in person. That would be an awesome experience. And I'm sure all of our friends and family here live on the YouTube chat would love to have you come and stop by. So yeah, that could be a thing. Maybe we'll do that more often. Let's see. Who else do we have? Adam B. Didn't get to say hi to Adam B. Let's see. We also have Dookie Pickles. Okay. All right. Okay, I like the name, kind of, sort of. I don't know what it means, but hey, we'll kind of just welcome you on in here. Who else do we have? Who else do we have? Did I say Eternity Eternal? I'm never for sure. Eternity Eternal, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you. Cannot start the show without saying hello to you. And where is Mel WD-40? Where's Mel WD-40 when you need him? That's what's going on tonight. We are missing Mel WD-40, who normally is the one that gets us lubed up and ready to get into the show. That's what's going on. So somebody put an APB out for Mel WD-40 so we can get the show all lubed up and ready to go. Tim James is out there in the audience. We do see Tim James. Hey, Tim James. Tim James, who may be having visitations with Dave Scott. So shout out to Dave Scott if Dave Scott is out there listening as well. Who else do we have coming in here? Corey has come in the building saying, you the man, Mr. Rob G. You the man, or Lady Corey. We still haven't cleared that one up. I would love to know. Because you are definitely all that and more. And we appreciate you coming on into the show as always. Who else do we have? We have Bomber. Bomber saying, hey, Robbie Sweets. Hey, Bomber. Thanks for showing on up in here tonight. Should be an awesome show for sure. We have Pyramid 7 saying, LFG, let's freaking go. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, let's freaking go. Pyramid 7, do appreciate you showing up here in the chat tonight. Blue Cruise is also here in the building. Thanks for coming in. We do have a Dave, though not Dave Scott, we do have another Dave, and this Dave is saying hello from the UK. Hope you are all good. We hope you're good as well. Joining us from way over in the UK, as I'm broadcasting live right now from California, old sunny California. Let's see. Who else do we have in here? 509 Divine Pines. I love the rhyme there. 509 Divine Pines rolls right off your tongue saying, "What's up? What's up?" Right back to you. 509 Divine Pines. That is excellent. Pyramid 7 is saying Rex, 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 Rex. Say it a few more times and we might get the guest to pop on in here as we are awaiting the arrival of Rex Bear and his awesome YouTube channel, which he has. It seems like some of you are definitely aware of it. He has a lot of subscribers, over 419,000. So, yeah, that part. Let's see who else here. Galactic Disclosure Movement. Mr. Rob G, did you get a chance to check out all the evidence that I have in the folder I share with you in email? Yeah, lots of stuff. I'm sifting through it, and I know you sent some more over Galactic Disclosure Movement that I'm ready to take a look at, and then we will be talking soon. So keep an eye out on your email, and we'll make sure that we do what we have to do. Let's see. Stargazer. Hi, Stargazer. Thanks for coming on in. Who else? There he is. Howie Odell. Howie Ed Odell, the man with the top hat, saying, "Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Tips Tops Hat. Show him my love and support." Hey, Howie, thanks for showing on. We do appreciate you. And Howie has an awesome channel, guys. Make sure you go over and check out Howie as well. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Guy Merritt. Seems like a new name. Never read this name before, Guy Merritt. But I do appreciate you being here tonight and showing up in the chat, saying, "Seen a UFO up really, really close in 1984. Aliens are real, and some of them take people, I promise." Yeah, we'll talk about that actually as we wait for our guest, Guy. That's a good one here. But I would first have to say hi to Carol Amario because she just stepped in the building, and it seems like we may be caught up there. So, yeah, let me go ahead and bring this back up here. So, Guy Merritt, seen a UFO really, really close in 1994. Aliens are real, right? And I think that's a big part of the conversation. And that's exactly why I have an issue with when skeptics call people within our community believers, right? Because I don't think it has anything to do about belief. As Guy Merritt just says, seen a UFO up really, really close, aliens are real. And that's all you need. All right. There is no need to have belief in that. That's something that occurred. That's something that happened. You visually saw it with your eyes. It isn't like someone told you a story about a UFO and then you've never seen one and you're like, "Oh, okay, aliens are real because this person told me a story because I keep hearing stories about these, so they have to be real." Okay, maybe that could be labeled as a believer, but when you make a statement like this, and this is one of I won't even say arguments. These are one of the debate points that I have when I end up talking to skeptics out there, because they tend to look at the community and kind of envelop this as just a bunch of people who just believe in something that hasn't been proven to be an actual thing, right? And I think that's kind of where it gets away from us because it doesn't take belief at all. And it's just laughable because, many of us have seen something or had some sort of experience or encounter. And that means that there is definitely something to what's going on. And the reason why we get together is because we are searching for what the what in all of this, the what and the why, right? That's where we are. But for some reason, skeptics don't look at that. So that was actually an actual awesome comment there, Guy Merritt, and kind of was able to go ahead and get us started here. A little more about Guy's experience at 125-foot object above his car, huge triangle, and it took two of my co-workers. I'm 73 in 2 days. and had a stroke Monday. Wow. Too old and sick to lie, Guy. And that's another thing. And shout out to Guy, healing energies to you. And also happy birthday. You said a couple days here. So happy birthday to you. I've never been in a position to see one of these triangles or these motherships, because usually when you hear about these triangle craft, they're usually pretty large. They're not really, some small type of object. These things are usually huge. And I've heard Richard Dolan talk about these at times. And these are objects that end up just floating across neighborhoods and things of that nature, right? He says you go outside for a smoke at 2 a.m, you just happen to look up and you see this huge triangle, hovering or floating silently above neighborhoods, a few hundred feet up in the air, right above rooftops. And yeah, I've never been lucky enough to see that. And that's the other thing, right, Guy? Because here's where, who has time to make this up? Yes, there is a part of the community which we know for sure might be what you call the embellishers, or the ones that will step in and make something like this up, right? Yes, there definitely is that out there. But most people, you can look in their eyes, you can tell by if you're able to sense when another human being is being genuine, those spidey senses, when those kick in for you and you feel the story, right? You feel it. And it's like, wow, this person is being genuine 100%. So, and I understand that, Guy. And it's a shame that people even have to say things like that, right? Like, I'm too old and sick to lie. Like, right? Just to get your story across the finish line, the stigma is so strong that you have to add that to the end of your story, which I think is a shame. Galactic Disclosure Movement, shout out. We appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. Saying for my mistake last time, Rob. LOL. If you want to advertise anything on SOR, be sure to contact him and set it up. And join the SOR greatness. I wish I had a round of applause for you, Galactic Disclosure Movement, but I'll just say thank you very much for your love and support. That is hilarious, but it's also true. So if anybody out there has any, advertising that they want to do right here at the Spaced Out Radio, we have options for you. Just reach out to info@spacedoutradio.com and we will get you all set up and we can get you going. Yeah. So that's awesome, Galactic Disclosure Movement. Appreciate you. Stargazer, we're looking out there. Stargazer saying they are silent until they get directly over you. Then it makes an electrical humming noise. You can feel the energy. Great point, Stargazer, because here's another thing. This is one of, and I guess we can break this down because why not? We have time. So when you have these objects, I think, and shout out to Lou Elizondo. I don't think there was anything wrong with him coming out and listing the 5 observables, because I think on the face of it, when you look at 5 observables, if you see an object that does one of those 5 things, then you can for surely say that it's something anomalous. But I think what has happened is you have a part of the scientific community, you have part of the skeptical community as well, that have kind of pigeonholed or locked in the 5 observables as, if it doesn't show one of those 5 observables, then it's not anomalous. And I've always said, okay, on the face of that I don't think you can put that in that sort of box, right? Because as Stargazer just said, they're known to make humming sounds. You've heard many experiencers say that they sound like bumblebees, like a buzzing, almost an electric buzzing as well, which is what Stargazer is talking about here. And so there's, I wouldn't lock myself in to say UFOs are silent 100% of the time. I would figure they'd be silent if they want to be, right? I would assume they would make noise as well too if they chose to do that. I'm sure those options would be on the table. So I wouldn't want to lock it into that, but you'll see a lot of people that kind of deny a sighting based on it didn't fit the five, or it didn't show any of the five observables, or it was something that made noise, like the drones that we see out in New Jersey and all across the world, the issue that is still going on, right? Oh, we heard them. They made noise. They were making noise as they went over. So they can't be UFOs because they made noise. No, not actually. Very possible that UFOs make noise, right? Um, it didn't take off immediately. It didn't zip across the sky and do a right angle turn. So it's not a UFO. No, not necessarily. The objects that I filmed that disappeared into thin air, mind you, these things casually floated across the sky. You know, maybe they were going sort of fast, but nothing out of this world. Nothing that you would say, "Wow, what." You know, that thing is got to be something crazy because of the speed that I'm observing. These things casually meandered across the sky, and every time these things are being seen, they never really show the five observables, except for me, they disappeared. So, you know, you can kind of check that off the list. But yeah, you know, Lonnie Zamora also, you know, mentioned almost like the UFO that he saw had like a two-stage sort of lifting mechanic and then a whatever shooting off mechanic. So this goes into a sighting like maybe like Cash Landrum. So Cass Landrum has been one that people pigeonhole as well and put into a bucket of this because it displayed fire or flames coming from it, that this had to be some sort of top secret government craft. And you know, okay, if you're going under the auspice that UFOs don't create flames or fire because of their advanced propulsion systems that they have, their anti-gravity, who's to say that they don't produce flames or fire? Who's to say that that's not the case? Which one of these individuals that make these statements have had their hands on one of these craft to be able to make that statement, right? Lonnie Zamora saw a two-stage sort of lift-off mechanic where it made the buzzing sound or noise as it kind of lifted up, got to a certain altitude, then kicked into some other gear, and then kind of shot off. So I think maybe that's the case. Maybe you have more going on than what is usually explained when it comes to these things, which means that Cass Landrum, if you're thinking in that way, means Cass Landrum could easily be something, you know, that could be described as something anomalous. If we take it out of that box and that framework, then all of a sudden the drones are easily categorized as something that could potentially not be from here, right? Because most of the time they weren't balls of lights, they were these physical objects. So like they, if they're physical like that and they're making noise, then it's something that we made. Now let's take it off the table, because as you see, that ends up not being true. And we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit, because there were some stories. Actually, Matt Laszlo talked to Representative Chris. I have the information here. Let me get this up. I was going to do this for my show, but I'll just use it here tonight. Representative Chris Smith. Now, Representative Chris Smith, he's the one, if you remember when they had the FBI go into that open public hearing, and all the different Congress people were speaking to the FBI director, I'm guessing. They were asking him questions about the drones. He was like, I don't know what they are. We don't know. And Chris Smith was the one that asked him or told him that he had been down to New Jersey and spoke with a sheriff, and that sheriff said that he saw 50 of these things coming in from the ocean, coming in towards shore. So that same representative has recently spoken to Matt Laszlo. I guess they had some, impromptu discussion in the hallways in the hallways over in Washington, D.C. And during that conversation, Representative Chris Smith talks about an incident where one of these things crashed at Langley and was recovered. I've done a show also about an incident within the UAP report that was released at the end of 2023 that talked about an object that was over a nuclear facility in the state of Michigan, and it also crashed. But for whatever reason, the object was handed over to local law enforcement agency in Michigan. And so when we uncovered that news, that's where I said, okay, they know what these things are because they've recovered these before. They have them, they're accessible to them. They have them in their possession. And if we get Rex Bear here tonight, then I want to talk to him about this as well, because he has mentioned or discussed a case where he had actually some more information on one of the objects that had been shot down, the ones we didn't hear of. So we saw the Chinese spy balloon, and then right after that, within days, other objects were shot down over Canada. And so he had some information on that. So if we can get him in here tonight, that's going to be a great thing, because I really want to know what happened there. Let's see. And Galactic Disclosure Movement saying, Mr. Rob G, UAPs have been seen and mimic other types of aircraft, and then they'll switch into something else when they know that they aren't being watched. And Galactic Disclosure Movement, I've said this before, and people have kind of, it's been one of the more fringe ideas, right? But it's like, why not? Why would that be out of the realm of possibility? That one of these things, all the way down to biomimicry, because my objects, the ones I filmed in my sighting, where I had 47 objects in the sky, they were in like a bird-like formation. The way that they were moving, if you've seen my video, you see these things moving with lifelike, like they're alive, like biological objects. And I explain that away as biomimicry, right? If they're coming into these skies, they see all these planes and these things with flashing, blinking lights. Would they do the same thing in order to fit in? Why wouldn't they do that? Right. And yes, on the face of it, it sounds insane and outrageous, right? When you just say it in that fashion. But I think the more insane and outrageous part is these things have shown up here on the earth and are here, which is a fact. So if that's true, then why can't these other things be true as well? This is why we're sitting here to talk about this. And we're going to talk some more tonight, because it may just be me and you tonight, Galactic Disclosure, right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Hey, we're off the cuff, and we love it. We'll see you right back here in just a moment. You guys don't go anywhere. We're going to get right back into some more conversation and maybe have a Rex Bear sighting. We've had UFO sightings. Maybe we'll get a Rex Bear sighting. We'll see next. All right, and we are clear. Yeah, this may turn into an AMA depending on how this goes, guys. But we're gonna talk. There's so much in this field to talk about that I'm sure we could hang out and definitely enjoy each other tonight. So just in case, get some questions ready and let me go ahead and start those or check those. Give me some topics, give me some questions in regards to things that you may want to discuss about things that have recently been going on. I'm going to tag those, and then if we need to fall back on those tonight, that's what we'll do. And so Galactic Disclosure Movement, I saved that there for you. Let's see. Yeah. Damn, 47 objects. Wow. That's what I said. And we could talk more about that after the break, because why not? Let's see. Yeah, this is great fun. You take lemons, you make lemonade, or you make lemon meringue pie, or you make pink lemonade. Strawberry lemonade is actually one of my favorites. You make strawberry lemonade. You take lemons and you make strawberry lemonade. You definitely don't make lemon meringue pie with it because I can't get with lemon meringue pie. But yeah, if I'm given lemons, I would like to take those lemons and turn them into strawberry lemonade, preferably. Lemon pie only if it's a home run pie. If anybody knows what a home run pie is, I'm probably aging and dating myself, but lemon home run pies were the bomb. And let's see what else. Maybe a lemon drop. Or what's the one? Not the what's the ones? They're the little lemon balls, and they're when you bite them into them, they're really, really sour. Oh man, I can't think of it. I can't think of it. Yeah, I got you, Blue Pack Man, Mandela Effect. We definitely why not talk about that? We talk about all that stuff. Throw some stuff out there. Yeah, we know some things happen. I'm going to end up reading because I did write down the transcripts from that conversation between Representative Chris Smith and Matt Laszlo. And it just, you know, without spoiling my show, because I still have a show on my channel that I'm supposed to be doing, you know, this could be what was said there might be tied into something that we may be engaging with next week. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that and see. And Jeff Garvey, Mr. G, no guest, que paso? Hey, we scheduled, we've been in contact, and no guests so far. So I guess we'll see. Dave said, disrespecting lemon meringue pie. I'm unsubscribing. It's just maybe it's just the ones I've had, Dave. But yeah, I don't know. There are definitely lemon things that I can indulge in, but lemon meringue pie, like only pink lemonade. I can't do regular lemonade. Lemon iced tea. Oh no, thank you. FAP says any dessert. Rob says just go the other way. He has no taste. Yeah. No, my aunt, she still makes this no bake cheesecake, strawberry and banana cheesecake. Oh my god. Oh my god. If I could get one and share a piece with every one of you guys out there, you'd be hooked. That's for sure. Now you're right, Chad Marco. Lemon cake is good. That's probably lemon pound cake. Thumbs up. Lemon heads. That's it. Bad cop, no donut. Lemon heads. Yes. All right, we got about 10 seconds left. We come back from radio and we will be getting into some good stuff. Hey, Phineas Coat Hanger from X, 5 seconds. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. Impromptu AMA right here with the guy, Mr. Rob G, as we're talking about various topics tonight in the UFO field as we await a potential guest, or maybe something came up. Hey, things happen. Anyways, if you missed anything we talked about tonight, hop in the archives. Absolutely free, youtube.com/ at Spaced Out Radio, as we go ahead and get back into what we were discussing, which was Representative Chris Smith and the conversation they had with Matt Laszlo. So here's how I'm feeling, and I was going to talk about this during the show, the definitive UFO news show, which by the way you can catch over at my channel, youtube.com/ at Mr. Rob G, where we have awesome shows over there and get into some really good stuff. So if you haven't subscribed over there, take a moment, just go ahead and jump over there and do it, because we do some awesome stuff over there. A lot of you are already over there, and we have great conversations. But one of the things that we were going to talk about, and I guess it's very relevant right now, is the whole announcement by Anna Paulina Luna that's supposed to take place next week, right? So there's a few ways you could look at that, right? And I talked to UFO Tim James, who will be on here with us a little bit later tonight in hour 3. But we talked briefly on a couple days ago about what these implications could mean, right? Because it's only a few words, it's and I actually have exactly what she said here, so that we don't misquote what it is that she said. But she said, big announcement next week. This will change the nation. Okay. What is that? 8-9 letters. I mean, words. 8-9 words there. Big announcement next week. This will change the nation. And it immediately jumped into the entire UFO conversation, or the UFO community grabbed a hold of it, obviously, because she's one of the representatives that's kind of heading, the push for UFO disclosure, transparency within Congress. And, it went a step further, because Jared Moskowitz kind of chimed in and put, I know. He just replied, I know. And they've said a little bit more since then, right? But initially, I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is just some political announcement, some agenda issue, an agenda being pushed. Okay, she's going to come out and it's going to be, something regarding the various issues right now that are happening politically. And I'm like, okay, that could be the big announcement, and then has nothing to do with UFOs. And that still could be the case. I think there's still a slight chance of that. But I think now how a lot of people are feeling is because Jared Moskowitz was part of that. Obviously, it's a bipartisan conversation happening right there. So that makes it less likely that it's like a Republican agenda issue being pushed, based on the fact that you had a Democrat kind of teaming up for that comment. So that lead, and plus Jerry Moskowitz is obviously also part of the UFO transparency push within Congress. So you had two people involved in that, two people making these, cryptic, not really fully worded statements there. And it's like, okay, what do you take out of that? I'm waiting to see. I also said a couple of days ago, it's probably something that you should not put all of your, you shouldn't over anticipate or over, set your expectations so high that when you don't get what you want in that announcement, you feel like you fall flat on your face, essentially, right? But I think there is something there potentially, just based on the people involved in making the comment, and then kind of the timing, right? If you think about the timing, we're still within this wave of drones all across the nation. You had the Matt Laszlo conversation just come out with Representative Chris Smith, who was one of the most loudest voices when questioning why these things were up there, and the things that were reported to him that were seen. And it's kind of all happening in this moment, right? And then also coming off of the lackluster White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and her, hey, these were FAA approved objects that are conducting research. Okay. So you can look at that a couple of different ways. FAA approved objects that are conducting research. Well, if you were to ask me if these were anomalous craft and you were trying to wonder what in the world they're doing, some people have said they've been scanning in grid patterns. Then I would say those, whatever those are probably conducting research, some sort of research, gathering intel. They're oversensitive installations, right? So potentially we're talking about not necessarily FAA approved, but hey, the FAA can't stop these things from being up there. So I guess they don't have any choice but to approve their presence because they can't do anything with that. And I'm just looking a little further, and maybe that's looking too far into that White House statement, but I'm just looking at the things that are happening within this short period of time. All this started November 18th. This is only February the 8th. So it is December, January, 2.5 months since the first incursion happened right before Thanksgiving. So it seems like it's been way longer than that, right? But it really hasn't. It's only been 2.5 months from the first report of the drones, where no one paid attention to it at first. It didn't really kick in that it grabbed everyone's attention until early to mid December. So really, we're only talking about a month and a half ago, really, when people started paying attention and becoming concerned about what was going on. And then all of a sudden, Anna Paulina Luna has she has a big announcement next week that will change the nation. What a time. What a time. What a time to be alive. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get so far into or read too far into what's being said, because this will be this will be something that skeptics will, you know, uh, kind of gather around if it comes out that it has nothing to do with UFOs. Once again, it'll be, oh, you guys are believe anything. You guys just want this to be true so bad that this tweet by Luna, which obviously had nothing to do with UFOs or anomalous anything, and you guys made up this whole story about what it is that it could be. So that's why you can't really jump in like that. But you could think logically. You could think logically. You could use your common sense. You could look at what has happened recently, some things that have no answers that we can prove, that were there, like these drones. And we know that the answer that the White House press secretary gave wasn't the real answer. We know that. So it's like, okay, is this the actual answer? Is this what this announcement might be regarding? What this was? And then I'm thinking on a level where, what else could it be? And as we talked with Tim James the other night, talked about maybe it could be some new committee, or I heard somewhere along the lines that they were going to appoint like a UFO czar to the president, right? Someone that kind of streamlines the information to the president. And that was I just heard this the other day. So this is kind of what Tim and I were talking about. And I'm like, okay, that could be a good thing if that's the case. But one thing I really hope not to see is just another, hey, we formed this new committee. Now this committee is going to pretty much do what this other committee is doing, right? And give it some weird name, some weird acronym. And then here we go. We're moving into some more of the same. So I'm really hoping it's not that. Um, you know, if it is a political issue, I really hope it's something that really addresses some of the grievances in the world. If it ends up being something like that, if it is UFOs, which hopefully it is, then I'm with that as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead. I had some of the transcripts here, and I'm actually going to read this because I've written this out. I can't do that. Let me do this. I need to save that actually. So I'm going to do this here. All right, this is the transcript that was released by Matt Laszlo and the scene, just so you can put this picture in your mind. And this also works for the radio audience if you can envision this. So this is courtesy of Askapol, askapol.com, which is Matt Laszlo's outlet. And this scene is just off the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. Representative Chris Smith is looking for a local New Jersey first responder whom he never finds during this interview. When Askapol's Matt Laszlo presses him on the Trump White House's flimsy excuse for the drone incursions over his home state, Matt Laszlo starts the conversation off like this. So, curious your thoughts on what the White House said about the drones over New Jersey, that the FAA knew. Rep Chris Smith says, well, I'm checking for, looks around, can't find his guest. Matt Laszlo is like, yeah. Chris Smith says, I had a situation where I met a lot of situations through, and Matt Laszlo says, because I always talk about that member of the Coast Guard. Chris Smith says, say what? And it's kind of a disjointed conversation because it seems like they're walking down a hallway and he's kind of just trying to interview him as he's attempting to go somewhere else. But Chris Smith says what? Matt Laszlo says the 47-foot boat. Laszlo is recounting the Coast Guard story that Smith had shared with his colleagues in their December 2024 hearing on the New Jersey drone incursions. So Chris Smith says, and it was a windbreaker. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says 100 feet behind the boat, and they were large. They weren't like little Walmart drones. Matt Laszlo says 12 to 30 feet. Chris Smith says 12 to 30. Oh, you got it. Matt Laszlo says it's mind-numbing. Chris Smith says so. Matt Laszlo says because they don't know that technology. Chris Smith says, and as you know, Biden White House National Security Communication Advisor John Kirby said they were jets flying into JFK. I said, what? Chris Smith says, so no, we're asking further questions than that. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Are you? Is the delegation going to get another briefing maybe? Chris Smith says, I doubt it. Matt Laszlo says, maybe hearings? Chris Smith says, I think hearings are really needed. DOD and Homeland Security. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, so. Matt Laszlo then says, FAA, or are they not even needed? Chris Smith says, well, sure, but I don't know if FAA, where's the military? Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, Homeland. This is U.S. airspace. It's not just over the installations. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, and that was the disappointment, with all due respect to the previous administration, because the guidance to them was, if it's over your perimeter, you can do something. And then we had it over their perimeter at Naval Weapons Stations Earl. We had two. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. CS says, or Chris Smith says, right over the perimeter, one landed, which is bananas. So he's saying one of these things landed in the perimeter of one of the installation. They rushed over and it had already taken off again. So not only they have one that crashed, which we'll begin to, they had one that landed in the perimeter. And then when the authorities went to go approach the thing, it had taken off on its own, whatever it was, right? So Smith laughs in disbelief. Chris Smith says, it's like, are you kidding me? It's a munitions depot. Matt Laszlo says, in the Senate, besides Langley, Chris Smith says, and Langley was huge. Matt Laszlo says, but then there's Luke Air Force Base. Chris Smith says, that's right. Matt Laszlo says, which shut down. U.S. Senator Mark Kelly's been bringing that up. Chris Smith says, these aren't small issues. And I co-chair the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE. 106 hearings, years to date. I've worked it all the time. They are so far ahead of us on drones. So if they can make them go stealth as soon as we get near them, that doesn't sound like Walmart. Matt Laszlo says, right. Chris Smith says, or even Iran. That sounds more like China. So Matt Laszlo says, right now, it doesn't seem like we're prepared. Chris Smith says, we're not. Matt Laszlo says, not prepared. Laszlo restated Smith after hearing the congressman's voice drop down to a secretive whisper, and the congressman nods that he heard him correctly. Chris Smith says, that's why I'm asking all these questions. And I have a bill that would empower local law enforcement. Well, as a matter of fact, the idea came from Smith looks around outside the House chamber for his constituent guest. Chris Smith says, where is he? I got to find him. I hope he didn't leave. My sheriff. Matt Laszlo says, did he? There's one guy over there. Laszlo points to a non-reporter standing in the sea of reporters by the elevator, but not a sheriff. Chris Smith says, yeah. Smith says as he sees who Laszlo pointed to, but shakes his head, no, wrong guy. Chris Smith says the sheriff of Monmouth County, Sean Golden. Matt Laszlo says, uh-huh. Chris Smith says, so he and two sheriffs, he and Michael Mastronardi from Ocean County, are being absolutely indefeatable in tracking these things, doing work. But they don't have all the tools to do it. The sheriff suggested we do a bill that gives the power with training. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, to local law enforcement, not everybody, just a select group, state police and others, so that if this happens, DOD was so reluctant to do a thing. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, I could get anybody in DOD, and Kirby would say, nothing to see here. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, off the record. Matt Laszlo, yeah. Per the congressman's request, Smith and Laszlo briefly chat off the record. Chris Smith says, what are they doing? And in New Jersey, they went over this site, this infrastructure that's critical, military bases. They weren't, Matt Laszlo says, weren't messing around. Chris Smith says, no. And they weren't flying over the beach, so to speak, except to get from here to there. Matt Laszlo says, yeah. Chris Smith says, so it just begs the question, reasonable minds would say, we think there's something very serious here. I kept saying, shoot one down, right? So with that being said, that was the conversation. And if you hear the audio, you can tell it's very disjointed. They're kind of walking down the hall, or they're not sitting in one place, just having this back and forth conversation. So, but it was pretty interesting, some of the things that this representative found out, or pointed out rather, which was that not only was there a crash and a retrieval of one of these objects at Langley, but also that there was an incident where one of these things landed at the munitions depot, landed in the perimeter of the facility. And then when they went to try to go approach this thing, before they could get there, this thing took off on its own. So that's, when you hear that and you think about that, it just makes you think about what this upcoming, what could this be that Anna Paulina Luna is going to be talking about here next week. I can't wait. I'll be getting some things together so that we can make sure that we stay on top of it and cover it. But, I just have a strong feeling that it could very likely be relatable to something that is going on. Because why hold a press conference? Couldn't you just make a statement, or, just appear on a news outlet and just kind of say, if it wasn't anything big, why would you schedule a press conference and then put this statement out that it's going to be big and it's going to be something that changes the nation? So that's kind of what we're going with on that. So I don't know what your some opinions are out there. Galactic Disclosure Movement, all those ones that landed on the military bases are probably ones that were brought down by Psionic's team. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely possible. And I think that's still to be seen is how these things or why these things landed. See, for me, if these things are anomalous, if these things are not from here, just for starters, without even knowing what we just talked about, if they are in the sky every single night like clockwork, night after night after night after night after night, and just for hours and hours on end, if these things turn out to not be from here, then I think that one of the obvious things is going to be that they're doing this for a reason. There's a reason why they're up there the way that they are. That's just for starters. So if they are also then landing at these facilities, landing and then taking off, and we don't know if they're manned or not. That's the other part of it. I mean, we don't know. Maybe, yeah, I don't know how we would even determine that, because I think in a lot of cases, what we see, not just this, but other various reports that we see are likely not manned by anything, but obviously controlled by something. So it's going to be, okay, did this thing land and it had something in it that maybe, hey, it was attempting to land to make have a contact moment, but then was like, okay, here they come, they're coming in and they don't look happy, let's get out of here. They kind of took off. Was it one of those situations? Because I think one of the big things that they were pointing out is there seems to be a level of awareness, and you saw that in a lot of the news reports as well, that when they sent up choppers after these things, they got over one of these things and it turned its lights out. Or when they tried to get close, it kind of just went off that way. Like there's a level of awareness to it. So you got to ask yourself what this might be. And then all of a sudden we have the story that comes out with the asteroid, right? Not saying it's related in any way, but I'm also doing a show on that too. Because I think what they said with that was it's a very small chance that thing will hit, but it's still like 1 in 67, which is like something you don't want to play with. So, and if it was something, it'd be something that would hit this planet within 7 years. So you got to ask yourself why the increased amount of activity by UAP or UFOs, whatever you want to call them, and then all these dates that people keep throwing out there, but now we have a 7-year window where something potentially could hit the planet. Is this all interconnected and related? I don't know. That's why you take the information, you put it on the board, you kind of look at history and other things to try to determine where you're at. But what we're going to do, we're jumping into our break at the bottom of the hour. We'll get into some of the questions you guys posted right after we return. You guys don't go anywhere. It's AMA.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2. As we have about 30 seconds before we come back from the radio break, we're doing AMA. We're going off the cuff, right? We're going off the cuff. As Roger Murray said, we don't need no guest tonight. We don't need no guest. And that's true. As you know, you can catch me over at the Social Dig, youtube.com/at Mr. Rob G, where I do a lot of shows on my own without guests anyway. So this is kind of second nature as it is. We're going to have a great time, and we're going to do what we do here tonight. So still going to be an awesome show. Make sure you guys stop and hit those likes, right? Because we're doing epic stuff tonight. Let's go. We got 5 seconds. Here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We've been doing AMA for hours 1 and 2 here, kind of just going over topics. We're going to be doing a lot more of that here tonight. If you missed any of what we talked about so far, hop in our archives because they are absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio as we go ahead and get ready to jump back into the show. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at some things here. Let's see. We're looking at... We had some topics here that I definitely want to go over. We just read the transcripts from Matt Laszlo and Representative Chris Smith at the end of the last hour, kind of just giving you an idea of some of the things that were concerning the congressman, right? And just, you know, I talked about this a few weeks ago because it seems that the attention span of not only the UFO community, but I guess more importantly, the UFO community, well, I guess equally important, the UFO community and the rest of the world, really, because we all need to kind of resolve this issue of our attention spans being as short as they are, because it just plays into the news, the national media outlets, which then, as long as they change the channel on the conversation, then our attention spans match that, and we're just ready to go with whatever it is they're showing us next, right? So we made it a purpose to kind of bring back the fact that these drones are still there, right? And as we talked about also in hour 1, now we have Anna Paulina Luna coming out saying she has this announcement to make next week, which everyone is kind of waiting around to see what that is. There'll be a bunch of shows that come out right afterwards saying, wow, this was the everything that it was meant to be, or it'll be the total opposite end of the spectrum where it'll be like she just strung us along and it didn't turn out to be anything. So it's going to be one of those days where, you know, you kind of probably, you may want to, depending on what the news is, you may want to stay away from social media, because I don't think moments like those, when you have such separation where one looks at something as nothing at all, and then the other's like, wow, what do you mean it's everything? I think that's not really a great moment to kind of get together in a conversational type of format, right? So you kind of just take it for what it is and kind of move on. But I know someone put in the chat earlier that they wanted to kind of get into Mandela effect, right? And I'm not really a Mandela effects type person, but here's my stance on this, and then maybe people can chime in as far as how they feel about it. Blue Pac-Man 13 has brought this up and also has said, okay, Mandela effect, multiple reality / dimensions. Could aliens be behind this strange phenomena? And here's the thing. Whenever I've thought about Mandela effect, you know, we look at all the normal examples they showed to Captain Crunch, all the things that you could find online about examples of where Mandela effect may have kicked in. And just to kind of go back, if there's people out there that don't know what Mandela effect is, it's this, I don't want to call it a belief. I want to call it more of a, it's a phenomena where there's a group of people who had remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison, right? But in our current reality, he was released from prison and died later at old age. So that's kind of where the name Mandela effect came from, and things that you remember one way, but current reality shows that it was actually different than that. And they give a long list of explanations examples of things like the Berenstain Bears, right? Just the normal stuff. But going deeper than that, if Mandela effect was a real phenomena, and I'm not saying it is or isn't, but I'm saying that when you talk about things like those dimensions or realities that might be parallel to ours, and when we talk about things like on this channel, we get into like the cryptid talk and Bigfoot and even examples with paranormal in some cases, how we talk about that thin veil being right there, and we are occasionally able to either see through that veil, or maybe it's more of a situation where those things are coming through the veil or poking through the veil. So same thing with dimensions, right? Where these Bigfoot or cryptids or things that once we go look for them, we can't find them, right? But they appear to occasionally show up and pop in and out of maybe our reality, that maybe they're stepping in and out, or maybe we're seeing over to that dimension. So I had this thought one day, and the reason why I thought about this is because throughout life, there have been times, and maybe other people can kind of align with this. There have been times in life where events have occurred that when you look back at it, I'm like, wow, how did I get out of that? Like, how did I survive that? And I'm not talking about where I was in maybe a serious car crash or something of that nature, and then I survived that incident, because I think that's more like near-death experience. I'm talking about more of a situation where I'll give you this example. Okay. I don't know how many people out there have fallen asleep while driving, but it's a very serious thing, right? Obviously, especially if you're on a freeway. Especially if I guess it doesn't matter if it's day or night, truthfully. I guess it's probably more dangerous in the daytime. If the freeway is more populated, it's more dangerous to other drivers on the road and also yourself. Whereas at night, it may just be dangerous to yourself. So either way, it's dangerous. There have been times where I may have been driving all night long, and then I find myself waking up as I'm driving. Maybe other people have felt that too. And then you sit there and it weirds you out, because you were literally driving while you were not conscious, driving a distance and staying in the lanes and staying in the lines, and then waking up in a moment later. So with that being said, I think about moments like those, and that's probably the most dramatic thing that I could think of. But there's other things where maybe, if 1 second earlier you may have been hit by this car, or you may have been affected in a way where potentially you could have lost your life from whatever the incident was. It feels to me like, and I just wondered this, is there a reality where you do die in those moments? So is there a reality where you did fall asleep, caused a massive casualty, but in that moment you kind of, your reality shifted into that next dimension where you actually survived, or you did not have that incident, right? Did you leave behind a reality where that incident did take place, right? And it's just in a flash, you're now in this dimension where, hey, everything turned out okay. And the reason why I think about that is because when you think about people who have what seems to be unbelievable luck, right? Where it's like, man, this thing is coming up, or this job that I really, really want, or, I'm going to pull the slot. This is my last dollar, or just a situation like that where where things could change for you in a major way within an instant, and then you pull the slot and you get 0. Is there a reality where you pulled that slot and you hit? Or is there a reality where you went to the interview, you killed it, and you got that job that you really thought was kind of out of reach for you, right? And it just is a wonder, like, okay, do you step, if there are these parallel realities, right, which is still an unproved that we don't really know, are you stepping over into those? It's just been something that I've been thinking about, especially when it comes to Mandela effect. And then even more so because of, like I mentioned, when we I've talked to so many people and interviewed so many people that we talk about different dimensions and things being parallel to our own existence and infinite realities. That is this something that is possible or plausible where these things are definitely happening, right? I don't know. What do people think out there? Yeah. Roger Murray says in our audience here, Rob G, my mother fell asleep driving, woke her up before crashing into another car. Yeah, I mean, and it's you just think about it, because I felt myself where I'm like, dude, you are either someone has their finger on you, or you are the luckiest person in the world for X, Y, and Z, or it did happen and you slipped into this the dimension right next to where you are, where it didn't happen, and you get to continue on. And it's just bonkers to think about. But I always point to things like, when we look out into space and we see these things that don't even compute to us out there, and it's like, okay, well, if that's possible, then there are a long list of other things that are also possible. So, Guy Merritt, thanks for coming on in and joining us tonight. It was awesome. We made lemons with lemonade like we always do. And let's see, we got Wes Decker saying, at Spaced Out Radio, I had an actual NDE experience where when I was back in the location after the fact, I had a flashback where I could see multiple versions of myself experiencing alternate versions. Yeah, see, and that's kind of the thing right there. That's sort of like what I'm talking about, Wes Decker, man. And it's just bananas, because if true, then I could probably count, 10 times where the thing that I thought I escaped, I really didn't escape. And it's just something to think about, because it's like we live to get to a point to where we one day pass away, right? And during that life, you try to do all the things that you can to not, meet an untimely demise, right? And then when you think about it like this, it's like, wow, okay, maybe I did, but multiple times, but because I keep shifting, then it appears like it's one continuous reality that I'm in. And I know that sounds wild, right? But I got Wes Decker that kind of aligns with that based on what he saw. And that's why we have these conversations, because it's cool to know that other people can relate to that, and then maybe even fill in some holes based on their own experiences. So, and that's kind of getting away, but sort of getting back to Mandela effect, because that's what, when I think of Mandela effect, that's what I think of. I don't think of the surface level things they show in the book or they show in magazine articles where they're, GIF or Jiffy or any of those things. I go way deeper than that. And it just, I think it's a deeper example of what, if there is something to that, what might actually be going on. And it would make sense. It would explain a lot that is currently unexplainable, even outside of Mandela effect, as we talked about earlier, with all the cryptid and Bigfoot side. It would just make sense that we have these very thin veils in between our reality, a parallel reality, and then just continuously going on. And really, it's just about how far you can reach over, right? So very interesting, very interesting. And let me see here. Yeah, Blue Pac-Man says, doesn't make sense for God to just create one reality. There you go. I mean, that says a lot right there, Blue Pac-Man, and actually a great, really great comment there. And let me see. So let me see what else we have out here. Because yeah, Mandela effect. That was my thought on that. Because truthfully, you know, like I said, on the face of it, a lot of people just think it's just the things you see in the magazine. But I think that's an actual deeper question. I did have Overlander BC. I didn't see you drop a question in here, but now I see it. Asking, hey man, what do you feel about abductions and the use of screen memories while simultaneously using terror or sleep paralysis to control the event? So I can let's kind of break that down a little bit, Overlander, because let's start with abductions, because I haven't, as far as I know, I haven't had an abduction experience. I think maybe potentially if I do regression, which Deb Shakti has definitely offered to do for me, quantum hypnotherapy, and I've had other offers out there as well recently to do that. I don't know about the screen memory part. I hear about screen memories, and maybe screen memories is what is done obviously to make you not remember the incident. But like for me, let's just use me for example. So if there was a time that something, I was abducted at some point, I always talk about when I was, I think, 9 years old, and I was driving with my mom, and it was a clear night, totally clear night. It wasn't late. It was probably 8ish, 9 o'clock, and we're driving over this really small overpass over Highway 99 in Sacramento. So anybody from Sacramento knows this, and it's 12th Avenue. And we were driving over the overpass, and all of a sudden there was a flash of light in the car. Now, at the age, I'm not thinking UFO anything at that age. You know, I'm thinking that what I remember thinking is I'm thinking, okay, a car's high beam, when they turn a corner, and then all of a sudden the high beams are in your face, then it kind of lights the car up, right? So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I thought. And I'm looking around and I don't see any car. This is, 8, 9 o'clock. It's not really busy. So it never made sense for me that, right? Now, going further down the line, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I ended up noticing this little scar on my wrist. And I'm pretty present minded when it comes to marks on myself, right? I can tell you where pretty much every scar came from, tell you the incident behind it. But for this one particular scar right here on my wrist, I've never been able to figure out what it was. And this goes back to my younger years, where when I first started noticing it, and I could not think of an incident when this occurred. Just never had anything that came up. So now that I'm in this community and I've seen things that are crazy and are unexplainable, then I kind of go back to that. And I think back to 9 years old and that whole situation being in the car. And then I also think about the scar that I have. And I'm like, wow, wait a minute. From talking and interviewing people, this sounds like things that people report when they experience abduction incidents, right? So I took that roundabout way to talk about that and connect those things, just to say that if something did occur, okay, at that point, is that, did I have some sort of screen memory implanted that prohibited me from remembering the actual thing that happened? And I guess the answer to that won't be until I actually get to do some sort of regression and potentially confirm the theory that I have as far as how these two things might be connected. So can't really speak to screen memories at this moment because of that, BC, but sleep paralysis is another thing that I have not personally experienced, right? I think the closest thing that I did experience to that was one of the incidents that I had that I've mentioned on the show, where I was literally drifting in and out of sleep, but sleep per se, because everything around me was constant. So think of yourself sitting where you are in the room that you're in right at this moment, and then think of your eyes are wide open. You may be looking at a television like I was, and then think of your actual consciousness slipping over into, maybe, we won't go too woo on it, but astral world versus what we know as the reality world, right? So you're kind of like shifting back and forth, but your awareness of your surroundings doesn't shift at all. So it's constant. So your reality, or what you're perceiving as reality, is still there and present, but your actual ability, your consciousness, is shifting back and forth into dream state, I guess. I'll say that was probably the only time, because when I shifted into this astral or dream area, I felt something grab my leg, because I had my leg hanging off the bed, and I felt something literally grab my leg like that. And I looked over the side of the bed. It kind of startled me, and I brought my leg up on the bed, and I was like, okay, I'm going to stay up. I'm not going to go to sleep. That's when I realized that I was shifting back and forth, because even though I was present and aware that happened, I still couldn't control myself shifting over here to the sleep side. And then I felt something grab my leg again. And so I couldn't control. I'm like, I'm staying up, but I couldn't control it. Right. So I think that was the closest thing that I've had that lines up with sleep paralysis. Yeah, but I can't speak to all those things happening in one event. I think a lot of things for me are going to happen. A lot of the answers that I may have, or things that I may not be presently aware of, probably won't happen for me until the regression therapy happens. And let's see. Let me see, just go back here. Yeah, I'll tag this comment you had, Galactic Disclosure, talking about psionics. So that'll be a great thing to wrap up the next half hour after this break here. Read some comments here. Ciela Azul, some remote viewers said that aliens see us as animals, like we see animals. We're insignificant to them. You know, I was just talking in chat the other day, and I said, we see these things going in the ocean so much. What if, and I think Dave was talking about octopus being sort of an alien sort of species that really doesn't fit into or have a purpose necessarily that we know of, within our ecosystem, right? So, and I was like, okay, yeah, they do look alien. And what if aliens farm things down there, right? What if that's like their aquarium where they have exotic things that they bring from other places? Just was like, boom, blew my mind. But we're going to talk about that a lot more, because we're having fun tonight. It's AMA, and we're getting through it right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. You guys don't go anywhere. You got a lot of great questions. You got a lot of great comments, as always. And guess what? We're going to get through it. So I'll see you right back here after the break. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are clear, everybody. We are clear. We are on our final break of the night. Before we get into the hour 3, can you believe that we are already halfway through the show? It's bananas. It's bananas. And yeah, usually I'm interviewing guests here on this show. Some snafu or mixed up has happened with our guests. Things happen, things come up. And so we'll see if the guest sends a note over to let us know what happened. But in any instant, when you're doing live shows, and that's the beauty about being able to do a live show, sometimes things happen. Sometimes you got to change plans on the fly, right? Which is what we did tonight. And it's been actually awesome talking to you guys because this is what we do over on my channel, once again, which is youtube.com/at Mr. Rob G, where we usually don't have guests over there. It's really conversations that move the needle, and we sit down and talk to each other like we're doing tonight. So you guys kind of get a taste of that, but awesome stuff. You guys got awesome input. Let's see. I like this 509 Divine Pines. I think this world is relatively a simulation theory, right? I don't know. We could talk about that too, because there was some interesting thing that I saw about that whole simulation thing. Let's see what else we could tag here. And I saw your note too, 509 Divine Pines, about being a guest or something like that. Definitely just hit me up. Email me at afterhours@spacedoutradio.com, and we could talk about some things for sure. Got it. Overlander. We're trying to really discern is if fear, terror, part of sleep paralysis is actually an unintended emotional side effect of sit, boo boo, sit, because the screen memories seem to be a band-aid. Yeah, and that's why, and we got so if you watch, I'm sure a lot of you have watched. Go watch Resident Alien because they get so much of this stuff right. That show gets so much of this conversation right. Like everything that you're mentioning, everything a lot of us talk about, they show in that show. So when you talked about screen memories being a band-aid, that triggered that thought for me for Resident Alien. Let's see. "509 Divine Pine, smoke weed every day." Okay. I'm behind on the chat, obviously, but I got you. Oh, Joshua, much love. Kudos to the dude holding it down. Guess the guest didn't show. Sometimes you have that. Rarely happens to me in this field, but it's just, I'm always prepared for it. So it's it's good. And I love interacting with you guys. So it's awesome. So appreciate you, Joshua. Hey, Mark Eddie. Shout out to Mark Eddie. I see you out there. Thanks for coming in. Cielo Azul, my son saw a shadow person always watching and playing in his room. As a child, he was never scared of it. Cielo, if you've ever seen my shadow person, and actually, we have about a minute. Maybe I could show you mines right now. Yep, I can. So I'm going to show you. This is my shadow person here before we come back from radio. All right, to set the stage, that's the Hat Man. This is what a shadow person is purported to look like. And ladies and gentlemen, this is my shadow person. right there in the middle of the screen at the end of the hall by the front door. Zoomed in, full figure shadow person. Bananas, right? There's been other things that happened too. You guys are fully aware, and I won't go through them all. But just a lot of stuff. So, phenomenon. That's why I say at the end of the show, yes, the phenomenon is real because I have too much proof that says that it is that I can show you. So, with that being said, we're coming back from radio in 5 seconds here. Let's get ready. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2. After hour 1.5, we're on the back half of the second hour already. It's been amazing. AMA, we are doing things on the fly here tonight. It feels refreshing, and I'm so glad to be able to do that right here with you guys tonight. And remember, if you missed any of what we talked about tonight, you should definitely jump in the archives, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio, and bring yourself up to speed on what it is that we're doing here. So, yes, definitely a lot of strange phenomena out there. And, I'm a person that, and I'll just say this, not everybody has an experience. Not everybody is, I don't know if you want to call it lucky enough, or I don't know if you want to call it blessed enough, but you would think that everyone, because you've had an experience, you would almost naturally look around you in this community, maybe even this chat room, and you would think to yourself, everybody else here is an experiencer. Not true. I have a friend who was previous co-host with me on my own channel, my good friend by the name of Mateo. And I talked to him about this because, he is older than me. Won't put his age out there, but he's older than me. And he has never had an experience. He has never had a single experience at all. But he is fully engaged in the conversations that we have and the fact that there are things out there. So with that being said, when you keep that in mind, some people are coming to see you, or some people are here tonight for their confirmation of the phenomena. And I was able to talk to him on a deep personal level, and how all he hopes for is to be able to see something or experience something or get that confirmation before his last days on this planet. And it really hit me because when I had my first experience, which happened to be the UFOs, I had no clue that I would also experience these other things afterwards. I thought with my UFO sighting, I thought that would likely be the only thing that I ever get to see, because I haven't seen anything that I know of up to this point in my life. And to kind of preface that, my UFO sighting only happened 2 years ago. And then everything else, the shadow person, orbs, all these things happened after that. So within the last 2 years, everything that has ever happened to me, phenomenon related, happened. And it happened like back to back to back to back. Prior to that, nothing. And so I was able to really align with my friend on this in the yearning for wanting to have confirmation himself about the phenomena. And it really kind of, I wanted, like, how could I help you do that? And you know how you help someone do that? You share your experience with them. It's the next best thing for them. It's the next best thing for someone who has never had an experience and might not have one of their own in this lifetime. Sharing your experience is that important. And that's why we have my channel and what we do over there. we have a show called My Experience with the Phenomena, where, you know, anyone can come up and talk about their experience. And we do a late night call-in show where we also invite people up on stage and call into a number so that you can call in and talk about it. And I found out there are a lot of people who had come up, who had never come up before, who admitted to me that they had never even talked about publicly their experiences. So the phenomena is definitely about sharing your experience. You keep being targeted by the phenomena. There's a lot of people that have had hundreds of experiences. Like, they can't stay away from experiences. It's just, it happens to them so often and all the time. You know what that means? You're being singled out. You're being targeted by the phenomena, and therefore it's not just to keep showing you that the phenomena is real. It's because they want you to share the experiences with others, the ones that may never actually get to have that personal experience. So, you know, I hear disclosure being personal a lot. I hear that. And I can understand the aspect. I can understand a part of that aspect, because in the moment of an experience, in a lot of cases, you are by yourself. And the emotion and the perspective changing moment is something that you feel within you. And that part of it is personal. Right? And then if it's one time, you don't have a camera, you don't have any of that. You just have the moment that you had your confirmation. That's a personal moment. But when you continuously have experiences and then you capture data on these experiences, well, then at that point, it's more than personal. It's more than a personal thing. You're being tapped on your shoulder. Like, hey, share this information. It fills in a lot of gaps. And it was just something I wanted to say. Something triggered that thought there that I read in the chat. And, you know, I think it's just very important. And that's why it's also important for, if you have pictures or any of those things, you should be bringing those out to people. Bring them out. Post them on the board for others to see. Because a person that thought they saw something but wasn't really sure will see your image or whatever that you brought forward, and it will fill in some things for them. It'll connect some dots for them on this phenomena. And that's how enlightenment spreads across the planet, is everybody, you know, we all help each other fill in those blank spots to form the bigger picture of what it is that we're dealing with. That's how you get everybody on the same page. So definitely something that I think is important to say, and something that I read made me say that. So let me see what we got in the chat here. Wes Decker, 100%. Mr. Ram G, yes, awesome. Appreciate your comment and support here, Rashid. I knew since I was a kid that we are not alone. Yeah, it's just, man, having a friend though that I didn't know, I had no clue, you know, that he had never seen anything, not a single thing. It looks up all the time and just nothing, zero. There are people out there that literally go their whole life and see absolutely nothing. And I just, it tugs at my heartstrings, right? It tugs at my heartstrings. Yeah. So with that being said here, let me see, what else do we have? A couple of other things we can jump into. I know I tagged some things earlier. So we did jump into a little bit of Mandela effect. Let's see. Okay, we did talk about the abductions there. let's talk about this. There is okay, this is the one I wanted to bring up. It was actually about simulation, right? Okay, 509 Divine Pines said, I think this world is relatively a simulation. And I know somebody asked me, I think it was on my own channel, about what I thought about simulation theory. Like, are we in a simulation? And I'm like, I don't know. It's really hard to say. Like, I don't see anything, any evidence, anything that I could point to that says that we are in a simulation. I don't know. But I'm open to it. And the reason why is I recently saw, and actually I saw this maybe a year ago, but it came back up in my feed recently, the same video that I watched. And I'll get a little nerdy real quick here for a lot of people may not even understand this. So if you need translation on what I'm about to say, definitely help out in the chat. But there's a in the gaming world, and when I say gaming, like video game world, right? There's a genre of video games that are called open world games. In these open world games, you play a character and you literally roam this open world and you kind of do things almost like The Sims, if you can think about The Sims, if anyone's familiar. But you're in this open world and there are cities, there are businesses, there are essentially a replica of the world that we live in, but in this game, right? So so when we talk about simulation theory, for me, that's kind of what I start to look at. So I'll look at that. And there are obviously limitations within that. You can't do everything that you do in this reality world as far as like interactions with people and things like that within this gaming world, this simulation, right? But I saw something that was that kind of was shocking. And what it was they were debuting this prototype game where the characters that you come across within the game who are normally pre-programmed sort of NPC, what they call non-playable characters, they usually have 5 or 6 lines that they'll say repeatedly, regardless of what the interaction is like. Okay, so that right there obviously is a limitation when you're trying to simulate what we call here as real reality. Because if I come up to you, we can talk about various things, and that conversation could go left or right. And there's feeling and emotion within the conversation, depending on things that are said. Now, in this prototype game, and if I could remember the name, I'd tell you so you could go see it yourself. But in this prototype game, now that AI has advanced as far as it has, which is a whole nother conversation on its own, the AI threat. But because AI has advanced so far as it has, they are implementing AI now into these open world scenarios where the world is already built up, fleshed out. You know, it has all the amenities that you would have in real life. They've always been there. But the intelligence and the interaction piece, the human piece, which makes everything, has now been added to these games. So now you can walk up to a random, what used to be a robot essentially character with 6 lines of conversation in his head, and you can now have full-fledged conversations with the hundreds of thousands or millions or unlimited amount of characters that you come across. So that now is stepped into a simulation, like a literal one-to-one almost simulation of the world that we live in. So for me, when I see that, I'm like, whoa, okay. If we've created that simulation and now it's on a level where the actual participants in that simulation can think on their own and can have their own thoughts and interact and go through and display emotion and those sorts of things, then I'm like, okay, then now within that simulation, are they almost at a level where they can now create their own simulation within the simulation that we've created? I think it's almost at that point. Based on what I saw, it was so shocking that it feels like that it would be literally almost to that point where now this simulation we've created can now create its own simulation, and then so on and so forth. And we kind of get into that infinity thing, right? So if you go backwards to us, does that mean that we are what we have just created? Are we also that? And that's where I start thinking about simulation theory, because I'm like, this has come to fruition that the worlds that we have created are now intelligent enough at this point to create their own simulations, that if we go backwards, are we actually in the simulation? That's about as far as I've gone with it, though. I don't have the answers for that. Maybe somebody could fill in the blanks on that, because, there isn't anything I could point to that says we're in a simulation. Like, there's no, as far as we understand right now, there doesn't seem to be limitations to anything that we can do in this physical world that we're in now. Maybe once we venture out into space, we become space travelers, that will get to a point to where we will see what the limitations are. But I don't think we have anything we could point to within our physical reality that says that there are limits to the things that we can do. So yeah, until then, for me, I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it, but very interesting that our own created simulations are pretty close to being smart enough to create their own, because then that opens up a whole new conversation. Let me see. Maybe we could pull another one up before we wrap this 2 hour up, the second hour up here. Let me go through the comments here. Okay. Galactic Disclosure Movement says, I'll tell you what scares me. It's the psionics team bringing down these aircraft, or bringing down these craft, like they are in treating them like cattle. Eventually, they aren't going to take it anymore. What are they going to do to us? Yeah. I mean, I don't. That's a tough one, right? That's a tough one for me, because when I look at that, I don't know if a craft is being controlled by an extraterrestrial, if they are the ones in control of it at that moment. I don't know how we would be able to overtake the control over that craft. And that's, maybe there's an answer to that. I don't think anyone does have the answer, though. But I just don't see. Now, if this craft if this craft doesn't have any physical being in it, and maybe it's a drone sort of craft where it's operating on its own, maybe we can kind of tap frequencies and kind of tap into that the same way you would bring a human-made drone down, right? Kind of tap into the frequency the same way. I think it was Iran or one of those countries took one of our Reaper drones and kind of hacked into it essentially to make it land on their runway, which they did successfully, and then they ended up reverse engineering it into their own craft, right? So maybe something like that, where if definitely some of these are unmanned ET drones, like the objects I saw, I don't think it had anything in them. So with something like that that's operating on its own with no physical biological thing in it, could you potentially take that down using psionics? Oh, maybe. I think maybe you could probably do that, but I don't see a world where a craft that has an extraterrestrial inside of it controlling it, that you're going to be able to overtake that using psionics. I don't know if it doesn't seem logical, right? And I think, being that we don't really know the answer, I think that's about as far as we can go with that. But I will say this is one thing that concerns me, is the fact that we as human beings have been keeping these craft, however they come down, whether if they crash, if they land, if they have bodies in them, if they don't, we have been taking these things, retrieving them, doing who knows what with these. We know we take them to some installations. What do we do with the bodies? Is it like on TV where they put them in formaldehyde and have them in these cases? Like, what do we do with these biologics, these NHI, the ones who have been deceased? That's one thing that puzzles me and worries me at the same time, because it's like, if we visited a planet as human beings, which we're getting ready to do apparently, like say we go to Mars, then we find out when we get there that Mars is actually inhabited by something, and we were unaware. So we get there, for some reason one of our craft goes down and crashes into Mars. These things that live there then take the bodies of those pilots and take them into wherever they take them into. We'd want those back. And we probably go to great lengths in order to do that, right? And it always had the question there that, wouldn't an extraterrestrial species feel the same way, right? Wouldn't they at some point want to get their biologics back for whatever ritualistic purposes that they may have? That's been one thing that I've thought about. Some people say, well, no, they only look at them as containers. They don't really care about the body. They look at them as containers, and their frequency is so much higher that they know that's not you, essentially, when you pass away. And I'm like, I don't know. How can we come to that conclusion? If there's any, if they have any sort of thought process like ours in any shape or form, maybe they have those sort of morals. Maybe bodies do mean something, right? And maybe they want their bodies back, because I've heard some people say recently, it's in some cases, that they feel like these things have been coming back more frequently because of the fact that they are attempting to retrieve bodies that we have previously taken in the past, and also extraterrestrial craft. I don't know. Let me know what you feel about that. If you put this in the chat, you can do that tonight or after the show. If you're watching this on Team Replay, you can definitely just add that to the comments, because I think that's, something to be considered, or something to think about. Maybe when they talk about the Eisenhower meeting, or if they had ever met with any government official, maybe it was like, hey, you got X amount of time to give back these bodies. You got X amount of time to get rid of these nuclear weapons. And if it doesn't happen by this date, we're coming back in, and we'll just have to deal with it then. If there had ever been a conversation there, I always worry about what's the ultimatum. And are we currently seeing that in the wave that we are currently experiencing? It's fun to think about. But I think we'll know sooner than we may want to know. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get ready to go into the last break of the night here and come back with hour 3. UFO Tim James, Steve Stockton, Mr. Person Mystery Tales Untold. It's been awesome, and I'll see you right after the break.
Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
right, welcome back to Space Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. While we're still on break, I'll let you know, just got a note from our guest tonight, Rex Bear, who sends his apologies to us all and says that we will be rebooking this thing and promoting the heck out of it. So I'll let you know when we get that booked and what date that'll happen. And we're coming back from radio right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are jumping into the third and final hour tonight, and we've been having an awesome time. Like I said, a lot of good thoughts and conversation, AMA, all the way back to the first hour. If you missed any of it, definitely hop in the archives, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio, where the options are endless, right? As we go ahead and get ready to start this hour off with what we normally do, and that is Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. So I want to make sure that I get his graphic up right here as we get ready to jump into that. So here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. George Lee Mallory and Andrew Sandy Irvine went missing from Mount Everest in 1924. Two British mountaineers, George Lee Mallory and Andrew Sandy Irvine, disappeared while trying to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Mallory was an accomplished rock climber who had demonstrated his abilities as a high-altitude climber on previous expeditions to Everest in 1921 and 1922. On the other hand, Irvine lacked experience in Himalayan and high-altitude climbing, but was skilled at repairing the oxygen equipment used by the British climbers at high elevations. Mallory made two unsuccessful attempts to climb above 28,125 feet without extra oxygen, but during his third expedition, he understood their benefits. Irvine's skills in repairing equipment and his lightweight oxygen system played a vital role. Regrettably, their oxygen tanks proved to be unreliable, with a total of 38 leaks occurring that year. On June 6, 1924, Mallory and Irvine began their climb from the top of North Col at 23,100 feet after having 10 sardines for breakfast. Their objective was to reach the summit within 3 days, and they borrowed a camera from Howard Somerville. Noel Odell, a geologist, spotted Mallory and Irvine climbing the second step of the mountain skyline on June 8. Despite being at a lower altitude than anticipated, Odell was confident that they would reach the summit. However, a snow squall hit the upper slopes, and upon reaching the high camp, Odell discovered fragments of oxygen equipment in Mallory and Irvine's tent. Irvine was getting their oxygen canisters ready before embarking on their summit attempt. Regrettably, Odell never laid eyes on them again. Odell spent the entire night searching for any signs of life above him when he returned to the North Col. Unfortunately, he did not find any. It took him 2 days to climb back to Mallory and Irvine's last camp, but he had little hope of finding his fellow climbers. No one had returned to the tent, which forced the expedition to accept that Mallory and Irvine were gone forever. The summit was thought to be close at hand before news of their tragic end was revealed. They had set out from Camp 6, situated at a height of 26,700 feet, and were steadily making their way towards their goal. With their expertise, it was expected that they would exceed the previous record of 28,000 feet. Dr. Theodore Howard Somerville, who personally achieved an altitude of 28,000 feet on Mount Everest, stated that the air is very thin at 27,000 feet. To move even one step forward, one must take 10 deep breaths due to the lack of oxygen. Dr. Somerville explained that the fatigue experienced when taking a single step is similar to that of running a 100-yard dash at top speed at sea level. After Mallory and Irvine's failed expedition, there were doubts about the possibility of humans reaching the peak of Everest. Nevertheless, others persisted, knowing it was impossible to survive on the summit without artificial air. During the 1930s, emergency flares and a functioning torch were found at Mallory's campsite. It's possible that Mallory forgot these items, which could have been used to signal his companions for help later on. In 1999, Eric Simonson led an expedition that discovered Mallory's body at a height of 8,155 meters. However, Irvine's body and Somerville's camera, which Mallory had borrowed, are still missing somewhere on the slopes of Everest. Mark Sinnott, the author who participated in a 2019 expedition led by Jamie McGuinness from New Zealand to uncover the mystery, discloses in his book, The Third Pole, that the Chinese might have discovered the remains of Irving and the camera and then concealed the evidence. Next up, Gunther Messner went missing from Nanga Parbat in 1970. In 1970, Gunther and Reinhold Messner, a pair of brothers, endeavored to climb Nanga Parbat, the ninth tallest mountain in the world. This towering peak stands at an impressive 27,000 feet. That's 8,125 meters above sea level, situated at the western edge of the Himalayas. Known as the Mountain of Destiny, it has claimed the lives of many climbers who have attempted to scale its treacherous heights. An article by Betsy Reed in The Guardian shared the story of the two brothers who successfully reached the summit but ran out of food and water. Unfortunately, one of the brothers, Gunther, suffered from altitude sickness and hallucinations, which led to his disappearance during the climb. There have been allegations that Reinhold Messner left his brother behind. However, Reinhold said both were descending the western Diamar face of the mountain when Gunther vanished. Reinhold continued the descent, but Gunther, already weak and lagging behind, was probably carried away by a massive avalanche. Reinhold sustained frostbite during the climb, losing 7 toes and a few fingertips. Max von Kindlen and Hans Zahler, who were part of the climbing expedition, later wrote books in Germany claiming that Reinhold instructed his brother to descend the risky Rupal flank even though they had almost died while climbing it. As per reports, Reinhold left his unwell brother behind to descend via an unknown western route on Diamar's face to become the first person to complete the descent. Some people have criticized Reinhold for prioritizing his ambition over his brother's safety. Reinhold took legal action against the two climbers and their publishers and insisted that he had done nothing wrong. He returned to Nanga Parbat a year after his brother's passing to look for the body, but found no evidence. He returned once more in 2000 to make a documentary about the journey and wrote a book detailing the agony he had been experiencing since then. In 2005, the remains of Gunther were discovered in the snow on Nanga Parbat. He was found wearing clothes and shoes halfway up the mountain. Reinhold's friend expressed joy upon hearing the news. He said, "We now have proof that Reinhold was correct." He also stated that most of the climbing community believed Reinhold's claims. With this discovery, he insisted any doubts or accusations circulated for years could be put to rest. The location of the remains matches Reinhold's statement that he didn't abandon Gunther on the mountain, but instead he was swept away by an avalanche. Hubert Messner, Reinhold's other brother, expressed great relief as the family could not communicate with Reinhold directly since he was in Pakistan and lacked access to a satellite phone. In 1980, Reinhold Messner made the first solo ascent of Mount Everest and, along with Peter Habeler, the first ascent of Everest without supplemental oxygen. Next, we have John Sturkey, who went missing from the San Jacinto Mountains in 2019. John Sturkey, a 55-year-old electrician, went on a solo adventure on January 4, 2019, without informing anyone of his intentions. After a month, it was discovered through his phone records that he had traveled to the San Jacinto Mountains, which was approximately 90 miles northeast of his home. Authorities traced this information to a distressing 911 call. While searching for her missing husband, Teresa Sturkey received assistance from Kathy Tarr. It was discovered that John's truck had become stuck on a rough road near the Fuller Ridge trailhead. Fortunately, 3 men off-roading in the area that Saturday came to his aid unstuck. Tarr spoke with these kind men a few months after the incident. As the darkness engulfed and snowfall began, John found himself stranded in his truck, running low on gas. Tarr kindly offered him a ride, but John refused, explaining that he needed camping gear or winter clothes. He politely requested not to call for help, but they disregarded his request and dialed 911. However, the operator categorized the situation as a disabled vehicle instead of a rescue emergency because the men had mentioned that John did not ask for help. By daybreak, there was a considerable amount of snowfall, approximately 9 inches. John's cell phone pings prompted the Riverside County Sheriff's Department to get involved. Despite multiple helicopter searches, they were unable to locate his truck. Investigators informed Teresa Sturkey that he was likely not in the area. However, John King, a resident who manages the San Jacinto Trail Report website and has search and rescue experience, believed the truck was still out there. He searched for it and found it on March 15, wedged against a rock below the Fuller Ridge campground using snowshoes. The Sheriff's Department halted the search for John in April due to a lack of lead. King advised Teresa, John's spouse, to seek assistance from TAR, and they began regularly scouring the mountains for any evidence. They also coordinated 3 primary search efforts with the support of many volunteers. Teresa admits she kind of antagonized the Sheriff's Department. She added, "They kept trying to scare me from going to search, telling me it was too dangerous," she said. "What else am I going to do? You guys aren't going to look for him. I've got to do it." John's body was eventually found in a steep ravine on the northern slopes of the mountain range, and it took a helicopter to retrieve it. Teresa thinks he attempted to take the Pacific Crest Trail to safety, but missed a turn. He had removed his fleece jacket, knit cap, and some socks he was using as gloves, indicating that he was likely experiencing hypothermia. Those experiencing hypothermia may feel hot and shed their clothing. Finding him meant so much, Teresa said. Even though logically you know that they are deceased, there's a part of you, being a human being, that just hopes they're alive. But getting closure was a relief, especially for her children. She says, "The kids were so anxious. It was like the foundation of their life was dropped out from underneath them. The relief when I told them he had been found, you could see it in their bodies. You never realize what a gift a funeral is until you cannot find your loved one." Sadly, Teresa's hardships did not end when John's body was found. The coroner's office listed his date of death as June, not January, even though what was found in June was nothing more than a skeleton. Because of that, Teresa said her family almost lost out on months' worth of life insurance benefits. Death registration guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said, when a body has been found after a long period, the medical examiner or coroner should estimate the date and time of death as accurately as possible and put that estimate on the death certificate. Teresa alleged that officials repeatedly refused to give her copies of their reports, which she requested because she wanted to see what areas had already been searched and then later to file life insurance and benefit claims. She said some people at the Sheriff's Department were helpful, and she repeatedly stressed that she's grateful to the people who found her husband and sympathetic about how hard a job the police have. However, in that agency, she added, it feels like there's this culture of not helping.
All right, that is Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Persons Mysteries. We love having Steve Stockton as a part of the show. Always compelling, always interesting. And I'm telling you, he can read you a receipt and it sounds just as compelling as you heard right here, right now. And he has a YouTube page. Make sure you go right on over there and support what he does because it's so much awesome stuff that he has over there. As sad as the stories are, and maybe you can help bring some of those missing persons mysteries and make them no longer mysteries. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into the after hours wrap up. But I know you're like, wait a minute. I thought Drew Banky said he was going to be out. And Drew Banky is out in a way. But we are going to be joined filling in tonight by none other than a guy you guys all know and love. UFO Tim James.
You're an unbelievable monster!
Come in, I'm going to eat you. Get in my belly.
Kick him in the north! Go it!
Wolfman's gone north. You're a monster.
All right. The after hours wrap up. Filling in for Drew Banky is Tim James. Tim, really appreciate you coming on in and filling in.
Well, thanks for inviting me, man. I always like it when we get together.
that is always a fun time. And we had an off the cuff great show tonight. It was we had a guest and some things came up. I recently spoke to the guest and we've cleared the air, and we should be having the rebooking and clearing those things up. But in the interim, we were able to AMA and do a direct connect with the audience and really speak to the audience. And I think they appreciated that tonight. I think it was a really great show. I don't know how much of it you got to catch because I know you had the dinner date with Davey Scott.
Yep.
Dave Scott. Okay. And hopefully Dave's at least at home watching the show right now. Dave, if you're out there, send me a text. Let me and it's the number 4. So text me with 4, and then I know that you're watching the show here tonight. Yeah. So we got into various topics and subjects. Some of the things that we actually talked about the other day with the Anna Paulina Luna thing coming up here. There was a twist thrown in that. And that kind of, since we were the ones talking about it, I wanted to bring that back up.
Yeah.
So there was, I was watching, I want to say Christian Harlan, his YouTube channel, and he brought this to my attention that Matt Laszlo had this conversation with Representative Chris Smith, who was the one who in the FBI hearing was saying, I was down at the shore with the sheriff and he told me that 50 drones came in from the ocean. So this same individual was having a conversation, I guess, in the halls of Congress, literally the halls of Congress, walking down the hall. And he had mentioned things about this story that we previously didn't know, as far as during this whole incursion, which is still going on, by the way, that one of these objects may have landed, crashed for one at Langley. And then he mentioned that there was one that actually landed. And then they tried to approach it, and then it actually took off, landed at a munitions depot for one. And then when they tried to confront it, it actually flew off. So that's the latest thing. And, the way Christian was positioning it, and I agree with him on that, is this potentially linked to part of what she may come out and say next week? Is it about, okay, we have captured one of these drones or it crashed and we know what they are, and maybe kind of outlining what it was that was found there? And I know I don't think we touched that part of it the other night, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd seen a little bit on it about the crash in Langley. And it was like, okay, and I wasn't sure 100% because everything was so vague. I thought we just might be doing some clickbait, didn't have the big pictures with the fake, superimposed lizard aliens or anything, but it just seemed to me like, okay, and I breezed through it. But then when I went back and I actually reread some of the stuff on it, I was like, okay, so they've got one that crashed, but when you read farther into it, it crashed, but there was nothing left of it. Now, again, do I believe that? No, not necessarily. I don't believe that there was nothing left of it. I didn't hear until just recently about the other drone that they saw that they tried to approach and it took off. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I mean, if it did crash, that's great. Or, well, not great, but I mean, if they've got it or they've got something, that's cool. So leading on with that, maybe that's what it, this big thing is, this big speech is that's coming up or whatever. Again, I'm skeptical, but I'm optimistic a little bit, right? And then, like we were talking about the other night, I'm not going all in on this at all, right? I'm gonna wait and see, and I like what you said. Expect a little and be surprised by a lot.
Pretty much, because it would be, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking of a moment where the hype has been built up in the UFO community, and then it's some random political agenda that's brought up, and this is the announcement on how. Man, I was like, that would be so horrible and so terrible for that to be the result. But I was like, okay, well, you got this bipartisan sort of conversation happening though, because Moskowitz has now jumped in, and I'm like, if it's some Republican agenda, then I don't think he's chiming in and agreeing and saying all these things. So I'm like, okay, that takes the political potential off of the table for me at least a little bit. But then I also, since we talked as well, I think it was yesterday. I was looking, and they were mentioned. It was I think Christian Harlan, the same person, was mentioning the UFO czar potentially that keeps coming up in conversations, and that maybe it's the appointing of someone. And they had mentioned a name like a David Grush as potentially being somebody that would be that. Had you heard that? And then what do you think about that?
Well, I did hear that, but I had heard I didn't hear Grush. I'd heard about the Czar thing. I've heard a lot of names bantied around. I know Elizondo's name was thrown out in there. And it um hmm, I'm conflicted because there's been so many nothing burgers, and I hate to be negative, right? I don't, I'm not trying to be negative about this. I'm trying to keep an open mind about this, but what it's okay, who are they going to put in there? Is it going to be a puppet that they're going to, if that's the case, that's going to be controlled and my opinion is it's going to be a Kirkpatrick that just stands up there and goes, "Oh no, we didn't see nothing," and just reinforce that there's nothing to see here. Um, I I don't know if that's the case. I really hope that if that's the case, and they're going to bring in, like you say that UFO or UAPs are, um, that person would be, for lack of a better term, truthful about it, and somebody that I think the public looks at and respects, not somebody that's appointed and we all go, "Oh yeah, okay, it's going to be this person, he or she, it doesn't matter." But yeah, I'm again optimistic, but cautious at the same time.
The other thing, and one thing, because I'm supposed to be doing a show about this, which I am still, I think, tomorrow about this. I didn't want to go too much in detail,
No.
but I did want to kind of look at what could be some of the other options. I'm just like, okay, appointing someone or saying we're opening this new department, I think, is a letdown generally for most community.
Right.
So I don't know if they understand that within Congress, because they obviously see what the benefit of having this new office is, and to them it's the best thing since sliced bread. So maybe they feel like it's a big thing. But then I'm just looking at something that when they initially said it was a cryptic tweet, 9 words that she used in that tweet, and within those words, when you point out that it's something that's important for the nation, like, okay, when we put our national hat on and we look at, okay, this encompasses everyone, because in new office, I don't think everyone cares about that. And there's certain things that I don't know you would put that national, which includes everyone, label on it. And so I'm just trying to break it down and just think of what reading between the lines on what else there could be. And the best thing that had come up since we talked was maybe leaning into, she's going to say, give us the truth about what these drones were, based on the conversation that came out with Matt Laszlo and Christopher Smith, Chris Smith. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm on the fence with it. I got a whole show set up for it as well, but we'll kind of wait and get into some other things here. We talked about a lot of things tonight. We had an AMA where the audience pretty much posted a lot of questions. As we have about a minute left, what do you think about? Have you heard of simulation theory, and what is your thought on what simulation theory is? Are we in a simulation?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just while I was waiting and listening to Steve Stockton, I was rolling through some stuff, and I just started to read the beginning of it. So I don't know a ton, bottom line, but yeah, I was like, what is this all about? Right. So looked very interesting, but I didn't get to get into it yet.
It's very interesting, and it assumes that we might literally be in a simulation, like a video game ourselves. And I was just pointing out during that conversation that I had actually seen this new game that they're working on where it's open world, and the NPC characters, instead of them having pre-programmed 6 or 7 lines, they have AI built into each individual NPC. So you can have an open conversation with anyone in this world, and it seems to be a replica of the world now we live in. I thought that was crazy and just says a lot where this is going. Were you guys stay right here. Don't go anywhere on the After Hours Radio Show. Literally, we're almost home, which is crazy. It's been a great show so far. Make sure that you stay right here. If you go get some popcorn, come right back so we can go ahead and wrap this thing up right here on Spaced Out Radio, After Hours Radio Show. See you in a minute. All right. We are clear.
Clear.
Yeah. Tom Altman came in and said, wait, blame Canada. Is that because we have our Canadian friend right here?
Yeah.
Tom Altman.
What
That why
the
you're
heck
doing
is that?
Wait, blame Canada.
Yeah, might as
Well,
well.
And speaking of that, and that's one of the things, says our guest unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. I don't know if you were aware of that, so that came up. But one of the things I really want to ask him about, and we're supposed to set up a new date, so we'll be having him back on. He's confirmed that he'll super promote the show because he has a crazy fan base. It's like 419,000 subscribers and stuff. He's a big fish, right? So
Yeah.
I think that'll be awesome, and I think it'll be great once we do it. But one thing I saw that he was talking about recently, and I wanted to ask him, was he was going over some information regarding one of those objects that have been shot down over Canada within the Chinese balloon. Yeah, and so he had some more information on the objects. He had emails and he had the whole breakdown. I was literally going to dive in to it with him. You can find that over there on his page too. I'll definitely send everyone over. His name is Rex Bear, and he definitely had these details that I really wanted to ask him about. So maybe next time. Yeah.
Note to self.
Note to self. Who do you have for the Super Bowl this weekend? I just mind blown. Who do you have this weekend?
I don't have anybody, man.
No dog in the fight.
I would say, if anything, it's hard to say. I like the Eagles. I do like the Eagles. I think, from what I understand and what I've been hearing, they got the cojones to come out of the cellar and do some damage. And then, who knows? Kansas City might make it a three-peat, judging by the coach's wife with all the rings on. Every time you see her, it's like, oh God. But yeah, it's hard to say. I kind of like seeing, after a while, I don't know about Canadian hockey guy, sorry, but watching so much hockey and stuff growing up, after a while, I got tired of seeing like the Montreal Canadiens winning and the Edmonton Oilers winning. And it was like, oh God, just somebody knock the top dog off. So I'm usually an underdog rooter, sorry.
That is cool, though. Underdogs definitely need people to cheer for them as well. But and I don't know if Tamad Man is some sort of is what do you call that, a psychic or whatnot? But he put this in the chat before you said the Eagles. Tamad Man said, "Ball guys support the Eagles," and then a minute later you chose the Eagles, and then so Tamad Man went a step further, said, "Ball guys named Timothy James." Like, dude.
Well, we both got
Tim
the
and
same
Tim.
name.
Exactly. Tim and Tim. I see what's happening here.
Yeah.
So
we're both Timothy Jameses. So
the is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're both bald.
Yeah. And I'm trying to grow the beard. Getting her going.
Okay. I had no clue. That is mind blowing right there. Okay. Yeah. So the Eagles, I'm a Cowboys fan, unfortunately. And in our division, we are rivals, the Eagles. So I have to not go for them based off of that. So I have to go for the Chiefs. Yeah. But it seems like, man, this guy is we looked at Tom Brady and we thought that was amazing. There will never be another dynasty like that. And literally, before he could even leave, the next guy up is already on a roll to kind of hit numbers that he hit, which I think is crazy because it's like you don't see that.
No.
You get that once every 40 years, 30 years, something like that. And to have that back-to-back to me is just crazy.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. Any sports like that. And it's nice when, you think that, okay, you see a dynasty kind of fading away and some of the players getting older and you go, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, bam, out of the woodwork, it's like, holy cow, this is awesome. Yep. Perfect.
Somebody brought this. Okay, I forgot I said this. Decipher. I forgot this was going to be the big show, so I had this also set to go stream on my channel. I
Oh, right.
forgot that it was actually going over there. I would have stopped it a while ago. Yeah, okay, so that's what that is, D Cypher. It was done on purpose, but I totally forgot that is what happened tonight. So, yeah, getting some love over there. That's cool. Just hit the like
Yeah.
if you're over at the Social Dig too. Then why not?
For sure.
As we got about 20 seconds here before we come back.
Alrighty.
Galactic Disclosure. My wife's a Cowgirls fan. Love you, Mr. Rob. This year they're the Cowgirls. I'll give you that. They really upset me too this year. So thanks for the super chat 5 seconds ago. Canada's not even a real country anyway. Wow. Here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. And we are in the After Hours wrap up. Drew Banky's not here, but filling in for Drew Banky is Tim James. Awesome, Tim James. And we're going to be talking about a few things here, guys. We had a great show today, so if you missed any of it, hop in the archives. They're free. Absolutely. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio as we get ready to take this thing home. Literally, and getting back into the conversation. So so we were talking about just a myriad of things here, and let me just try to pull up a couple things. There was so many different things. Okay, let me get your you had some.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and you know what? These type of shows, when unfortunately a guest doesn't show up and stuff like that, this is where the rubber hits the road, and it is always fun. And I always find that these are some of the best shows that you can do, right?
Off the cuff. It sharpens your chops, right? Your chops, right? And over on my channel, I don't really host guests over there, so I kind of already do this. There, you know what I mean? So it's beautiful and I love it. It feels good to be able to connect. And we had brought up for a moment, we were talking about Mandela effect. Some people have brought that up. How do you see Mandela effect? And because essentially on the face of it, it's presented in magazines as, hey, you remember this product? Well, it also used to sell like this, and not really that part of it, because essentially what they're saying is that in this reality it was this, but we kind of slipped over into another timeline at some point, which is the Mandela effect. What do you think even deeper than that, as far as have you had any experiences yourself, or can you think of a time where you may have experienced Mandela effect?
Yeah, it's funny because to me, I didn't know a lot about the Mandela effect, and I wasn't, I'd heard it and I was like, oh yeah, right, coincidence. But what I found, I guess I was probably about mid-20s at the time, so way back. And I would sit and I was talking with the family. We were up at my dad's place, and we were, my grandparents were there, and we were just having a great time. It was summer, barbecuing and everything. We were hashing old stories and telling old stories. And I remember and this did happen, but I remember when I was a kid, we'd gone up, my grandmother and myself and my brother had gone up to our cabin up at a lake. Well, actually right around where I live now, but we'd gone up to our cabin, and I got out of the car, and I think I was probably about 12, and I ran up and had to use the outhouse. So I went and go to the washroom, and my grandmother's outside screaming, "Don't come out of the washroom. Don't come out of the washroom." I'm like, well, why don't I want to come out of the washroom? There's a bear. Okay, so there I am, 12 years old, stuck in an outhouse, and there's a bear outside. Well, everything unfolded, and my grandmother's chasing it with a pan and a pot and all that. And it was the bear was just a black bear. And I remember seeing it as a black bear. And then sitting there years later talking about these stories and stuff, everybody went from a black bear to like all of a sudden it went different. Everybody was talking about, well, had white on it and stuff like that. And it was so funny because throughout the years, everybody had been talking the same. And then like I say, in my mid-20s, the whole color of this bear changed around. The time and the place was exactly the same. Everything was the same except the way that the color of this bear and what it, the description of what it looked like. And everybody's looking at me like I'm nuts. And and I'm like, no, I was the guy that was standing in the outhouse, and when I opened the door and saw it running, not past me in a way, but running away from me, that was a black bear. And grandmother's like, no, no, no. And it was all white. And he had, so yeah, I had that. That's one that I remember. Besides the other things like, different commercials and stuff like that, where, it had a different slogan and then, no, it's never been that way. This is the way it's always been. That sort of thing. But the personal one that I can probably relate as close to the Mandela effect is this bear, right? And it was like, okay. And still to this day, my younger brother, well, yeah, younger brother, he still says the same thing. Hey, did Uncle Tim ever tell you about the time that he got chased out of the outhouse by a bear? And he says a big white thing. And I'm like, it wasn't white. It wasn't white.
Here's
Right.
where it gets complicated, right? So because of that, you guys both kind of have a lot of aligning on your experience of what happened. Here's where it gets tricky for me.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Apparently, you have a group of people who will say, yeah, we remember Captain Crunch being spelled like that.
Yeah.
We remember all of these examples, but we don't remember this one. But
Mhm.
then it's like, okay, well, then you guys must have shifted from the same dimension or timeline. But how about when it gets into we agree on all these except for this, and then maybe that one as well? So then how does that work, right? Because if you shifted the same timeline, shouldn't you agree on everything, all
I
the differences?
Exactly. That's what I would think too, right? And well, I guess okay. Now I'm thinking about that. You would think that that would be the case, but if that was the case, how would anybody know that anything's changed if everybody believes the same thing, right? You know where I'm getting to?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, and
okay,
that's what I mean. So, like in comparison, so you remember Captain being spelled out. I
yeah,
remember Captain CAPN.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, so that's our difference here.
mhm,
Everyone over here agrees with me that this is what happened. So we must have all jumped the same timeline, but
right,
you didn't. Like you're the only
yeah,
one odd man out. But I'm like,
right,
okay, but you didn't agree with me on Captain Crunch, but you agreed with me on all the other things.
yeah,
So it's like, well, how does it's a conflict there? Like, how do you resolve that conflict? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Maybe there's an answer to that, but that's the thing
hmm,
that keeps me hung up on the Mandela effect.
yeah. No,
'Cause
that's a
we're at
good point.
odds about this, but we agree on all these other things, which means that we must have shifted that timeline for those things as well. But then shouldn't we also agree on this thing then? And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, no, you're
no.
right. It's almost like, a group of us got on the elevator and some of us missed it. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Perfect analogy. Perfect analogy. And I had to submit to, and I did this for SOR. I
Mhm.
had to agree that the Eagles would win by 55, even though I hate the Eagles because they're in my division. But I did it for Vaughn. And then Vaughn said, if you do it, then I'll donate $20 to SOR, which he has done. You heard it from Rob G. Eagles by 55. I don't really have a dog in the fight, truthfully. And if it's gonna get SOR, put SOR on the map, then we'll just do that for that. So Dave
100%.
Scott, I took a loss. I took a loss right here. My integrity, right? Took a shot by accepting $20 Spaced Out Radio. So awesome stuff. Man, Tim, it's been awesome, man. I don't want to keep you for too much tonight because I may
No worries.
need you tomorrow. I just don't know.
Hey,
Um,
I'm around, buddy.
Okay. So I'll reach out and then we'll see what we can do. I'm gonna go ahead and close everything out with some news, UFO news stories, and then just get up out of here. How about that?
Right on. All right, guys. Well, you enjoy your night. I'm going to get out of here. Rob, thanks for having me on, and hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow night.
Man, awesome, Tim. Thanks so much, and
You
maybe
bet,
see you
man.
tomorrow. Take care. All right, guys. Yeah, integrity down the drain, man. Because I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm not supposed to do this, but I did this for SOR, so not really integrity, but I kind of sold out, right, a little bit. It's okay. It's all right. You know, my team sucks so bad this year that I'm okay with that. You know, when you're almost to a point to where it's like, I hate my team so much, but I can't abandon them because it's my team. But I literally was at that point with my team this year. So, Vaughn, if that's what you want, man, you're a cool dude. So I hope your team wins. Happens to be the Eagles. And yeah, so good luck there, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. With that being said, let me go ahead and get us into the news because we're already at the end of the show. It's crazy. You guys have been awesome. You've been right here. You stuck in. We did the thing tonight. We had a great show, and we're gonna go ahead and just wrap it up with a couple of crazy news stories. So let's go ahead and get ready to do that. And yeah, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. But I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. And in that intro, you heard Ron Burgundy say, it's a horrible and terrifying story. And this one kind of fits this bill. So concerning effects scientists faced after proton beam went through his head with hundreds of fatal doses of radiation. That doesn't sound fun, but we're going to jump into the story here. He actually survived the beam of radiation. On the 13th of July, 1978, 36-year-old Soviet scientist Anatoly Bugorsky was working for the Institute for High Energy Physics on a device called the U-70 synchrotron. This was a nuclear particle accelerator that at time of construction held the world record for beam energy, meaning that it could generate the beam with the highest energy in the world. While that record has since been surpassed, there is one person who has hit that powerful beam and survived, and we've already told you the name and date that it happened. As for how it happened, Bugorsky leaned into the device to check a piece of malfunctioning equipment and didn't realize that the safety mechanism wasn't functioning. The scientist was hit in the head with the proton beam and saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, though seemingly didn't feel pain from what had happened. The parts of his head hit by the beam were exposed to between 200,000 to 300,000 Roentgens of radiation, which is many, many times above a dose that should be lethal. Despite being hit with the massive amount of radiation right to the head, he was alive, and in the days that followed, the left side of his face swelled up and the skin started to peel off. Yikes. Doctors could also see the path the beam had taken through his skin, skull, and brain, and expected him to pass away at some point over the next few weeks, but instead he continued to survive. According to Wired, the path through the man's head continued to burn, resulting in nerve damage that paralyzed the scientist on the left side of his face. While he occasionally had seizures, those were the only major signs of taking a proton beam full of enough lethal radiation to kill many men to the face. The paralyzed left side of his face also didn't age so much compared to the right side, and when he concentrated, wrinkles would only form on the right side of his face. He said this is, in effect, an unintended test of proton warfare. I am being tested. The human capacity for survival is being tested. During the 90s, he expressed an interest in leaving Russia and moving west, where he could be studied further. but didn't have the money to move. Incredibly, despite having a proton beam shot through his head, the retired scientist still seems to be alive. Despite his longevity, we wouldn't recommend being hit with the proton beam. Your own experience may be very, very different. That is insane. That is insane. And I wish I could show you pictures of what the gentleman looked like. And to be still alive after being hit with a proton beam is mind-blowing. No pun intended, right? No pun intended, actually, on that. As we go ahead and get ready to jump into the next story, this one is more, I think, reflective of what we may, if you look forward into the future, if we stay on the path that we're on, maybe this is the result. Next story. Scientists used a computer to predict exactly when society will collapse. The results were pretty terrifying. A group of scientists have used a computer to try and establish exactly when society will collapse, and the results are rather daunting. With artificial intelligence, AI, becoming more advanced every day, scientists are able to use technology to understand more about the future of humans and planet Earth. Unfortunately, for one group of scientists at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, this includes trying to calculate when society will cease to exist. Back in 1972, the team at MIT used computer modeling, which evaluated several data patterns relating to the likes of population, natural resources, and energy use. After carrying out their research, the study was published by the Club of Rome, with the upcoming limits to growth highlighted as what would cause the eventual collapse of human society. When did the study predict society would end, you might ask? So when did it predict the end of society as we know it? Through this research, the team learned that the fall of society would hit near the midpoint of the 21st century. And yes, in case you've forgotten, that's the century we're currently in the middle of. In fact, there is apparently less than 2 decades to go until the collapse. Around 17 years to be precise, as the scientists predicted the collapse would come in 2040. At the time, the report wasn't taken too seriously and did attract some ridicule, The Guardian reports. However, before you start to feel smug, you should know that in 2009, a different team of researchers did a similar study which produced similar results. Published by American scientists, the more recent study concluded that the model's results were almost exactly on course some 35 years later in 2008 with a few appropriate assumptions. It is important to recognize that its predictions have not been invalidated and in fact seem quite on target. We are not aware of any model made by economists that this is accurate over such a long time span, the study said. Further to this, in 2021, Dutch sustainability researcher Gaia Harrington also affirmed the somewhat bleak predictions made in the study. Speaking to The Guardian, Harrington said, from a research perspective, I felt a data check of a decades-old model against empirical observations would be an interesting exercise. Harrington found that the data aligned with the predictions made back in 1972, which had a worst-case scenario of economic growth coming to a halt at the end of this decade and society collapsing around 10 years later. Thankfully, however, Harrington did have a bit of optimistic news. She told The Guardian, the key to finding of my study is that we still have a choice to align with the scenario that does not end in collapse. With innovation in business, along with new developments by governments and civil society, continuing to update the model provides another perspective on the challenges and opportunities we have to create a more sustainable world. That is a wake-up call. I think it's literally a wake-up call. I was unaware of that study. Could you look around today and see the plausibility in what was said there in that story. You know, I think maybe yes, and it's frightening. It's frightening to know that there are so many different ways that our society could meet some sort of end like that, right? This is one that we hadn't even thought about. We thought about others that we talk about all the time, but there's different avenues that we could take that will lead us to the same result. If you remember as a kid, for some of us, there were books called Choose Your Own Adventure. And depending on what you chose would determine the end result, would determine the end of the story and how the outcome turned out. And we are literally in one of those choose your own adventure moments. This actually includes the steps you heard in that story, different ways that we can present the economic situation, and then also in disclosure as we roll down this path and try to uncover the truth about what's visiting our planet and the effects that having a disclosure moment could have on us going forward. Choose your own adventure, right? What will we choose? And I think that's a good thing to kind of leave everything off on and just really think about. I think it really encapsulates not only, the story that we read, but the moment that we're in. And maybe that'll be the new tagline, right? I don't think they've trademarked that. So I think choose your own adventure just kind of says it all. And maybe that'll be something we refer back to as we go. However, as I stated earlier, our guest that wasn't able to make today has reached out and has apologized to everyone out there for not being able to show up for this, and has promised a date for return where this will be fully promoted, and I agreed to it. So we will let you know when that's going to happen, and we will definitely bring you another awesome show. This one was just as awesome as it could be, though, and I owe it all to you out there, because it takes two to tango, and you guys presented some really great stuff tonight. So for the radio audience, I really hope you guys were entertained by the conversation that we had tonight, and we'll be doing this all again tomorrow. So normally I start off by thanking the guests, so I guess I'll thank myself tonight and thank you guys, right? So I'll thank everyone that showed up here tonight. I'll thank Tim James for stepping in for our guy Drew Banky for this weekend as he's on his trip. And we also want to thank the guy that you hear right here, Ron Bumblefoot Dog, the guy that teaches us and shows us to never say never again. Very important, because as we said earlier in the show, the phenomena is real. Therefore, after that, anything and everything is possible. If you appreciate the show tonight and everything that we've done, go ahead and throw your horns up. Let us know that you loved what we did. Hit the like button as well. Also, we want to go ahead and thank the listeners and viewers from whenever and wherever in the world you may be listening from. Thank you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. What's that, you ask? We own the night. We own the night. This show has been copyrighted to Spaced Out Radio, SOR Media Ventures Limited. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I'm Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe as we go off air for the night, we will be back right here doing the same thing once again, kicking butt, kicking down the door as usual. Much love to everybody. See you tomorrow night. Take care. we are clear. We are clear. And yeah, awesome show. Went by so fast. What can I say? What can I say? We made strawberry lemonade tonight, and I hope it's delicious. I hope you guys enjoy that strawberry lemonade as we pour it all around the audience tonight. And I'm not going to be here for too much longer. I'm going to go ahead and call this thing. And I'll tell you one thing I did tonight before I came into the show. I actually was sent a pizza oven from my mother. She sent me a pizza oven because we're going to build one, and a real full-size pizza oven. So she sent a temporary pizza oven, and went ahead and fired that thing up before I came in the show tonight. And I made barbecue chicken pizza, guys. I actually made 4 different pizzas for everybody that wanted pizza, but I made myself a barbecue chicken and pepperoni, pineapple, sausage, salami pizza, and half of it is waiting for me at home. So that's where I'm going to go, guys. It's been a fantastic night. You guys enjoy the rest of your night, and we will be talking again tomorrow. As our guest is Zayshan Saldowski, and we are on for that, and we're going to wrap up the weekend in a major way. And yeah, that's what we do. So we want retribution more than ever tonight, guys. Have a great rest of your night. See you next time. Take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.